The prison guard froze when he opened the cell. On the small metal desk sat a thick stack of papers, carefully organized. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, diagrams, and lesson plans. This was not random scribbling. This was structured, clean, intentional. At the top of several pages were words that made the room go silent. ISIS training material. The inmate, Ahmed, sat calmly on his bunk, watching the guard's face change. He did not panic. He did not hide anything. He already knew this moment would come. The papers were not smuggled weapons or drugs. They were worse. They were ideas. Inside those pages were recruitment lessons, extremist beliefs, and propaganda meant to turn other prisoners into followers. According to the Department of Justice, this material had been used quietly inside the prison for months. And Ahmed was not alone. As investigators later learned, these manuals were being passed from cell to cell, discussed in whispers during recreation time, and taught like secret classes. The prison was meant to hold dangerous people. Instead, it had become a classroom for terror. What no one knew yet was how far the indoctrination had already spread. And that was the most frightening part. The story did not begin with the discovery of the manuals. It began years earlier, far away from the prison walls. Ahmed had once been an ordinary man. He had a job, friends, and a normal life. But online propaganda videos pulled him in slowly. They promised purpose, power, and meaning. By the time authorities arrested him for supporting a terrorist organization, his beliefs were already deeply rooted. When Ahmed entered the U.S. prison system, officials believed isolation would stop the spread of extremist ideas. But prison is not silence. It is a place where people talk, watch, listen, and search for belonging. Ahmed noticed something quickly. Many inmates were angry. Some felt forgotten. Others were scared. That made them vulnerable. So he started talking. At first, it sounded harmless. Conversations about faith, complaints about government, stories about injustice. Then, slowly, the message changed. He began to frame violence as strength and hatred as duty. The manuals came later. Using materials he memorized before his arrest, he recreated structured lessons on paper. These were not random thoughts. The Department of Justice later confirmed that the documents showed planning, order, and intent. They were designed to teach ideology step by step, even under strict prison rules. The prison staff had no idea what was happening. During group prayers, Ahmed spoke softly to selected inmates. During meals, notes were exchanged. At night, men gathered around bunks, listening as he explained his beliefs. To them, he sounded confident, certain, calm. That confidence was the hook. Some inmates rejected him. Others listened. A few started to believe. The manuals were hidden in subtle place. Guards were trained to look for weapons, drugs, and gang symbols. These papers looked like religious notes. That made them harder to detect. But one inmate noticed something was wrong. He had been attending the discussions out of curiosity. Over time, the tone changed. The language became darker. The message became dangerous. Fearing what might happen if this continued, he quietly alerted prison officials. That tip triggered the search. When investigators reviewed the papers, the seriousness became clear. This was not simple belief. This was recruitment. This was propaganda. This was an attempt to build loyalty to a violent extremist group from inside a U.S. prison. Officials immediately separated Ahmed from other inmates. The manuals were seized. Intelligence agencies were notified. The Department of Justice launched a deeper investigation. But one question haunted them.
How many people had already been influenced before the manuals were found? As Ahmed was escorted down the hallway in handcuffs, he looked back at the cell one last time. The papers were gone. The lessons were over, or so it seemed. Because what investigators uncovered next would reveal that this prison was only one piece of a much larger problem, one that stretched across multiple facilities and exposed a hidden battle happening behind bars. And the worst discovery was still ahead. The lockdown came without warning. Metal doors slammed shut one after another, echoing down the long hallway. Inmates were ordered to their bunks. Guards moved fast, their faces tense. Word had spread that federal agents were inside the prison, not for a routine visit, but for something far more serious. Investigators from the Department of Justice had arrived after reviewing the seized papers. What they saw alarmed them. The manuals were not just personal notes, they matched known ISIS propaganda language and structure used in real cases before. The writing style, the order of lessons, and the way ideas were repeated all pointed to organized recruitment. This was not a lone inmate talking out of anger. This was a system. Agents began quiet interviews. One by one, inmates were pulled aside. Some denied everything. Some said they only listened. A few admitted they believed the message. That was when officials realized the damage could not be measured easily. Radical ideas do not leave fingerprints. During questioning, one inmate said something that changed the case. He explained that Ahmed often spoke about preparing minds, not actions. He told them Ahmed believed prison was the perfect place to recruit because people were isolated, bored, and searching for meaning. That statement raised a red flag because it meant Ahmed had a long-term plan. As agents dug deeper, they found letters Ahmed had tried to send out of prison. Most were blocked, but drafts remained. The language was coded, nothing illegal on the surface, but experts recognized the meaning hidden between the lines. It was propaganda meant to inspire others beyond the prison walls. Officials now feared the prison was not just a target, it was a hub. This was not the first time something like this had happened in the United States. Past cases had shown that convicted extremists sometimes continued their influence while incarcerated. But this case stood out because of the level of organization. Ahmed was not reacting to prison life, he was using it. The prison administration faced hard questions. How did this happen under constant supervision? How many others were doing the same thing? And most importantly, could this spread to other prisons? While officials debated next steps, Ahmed sat alone in a high-security unit. No group activities, no shared prayer, no contact with other inmates except guards. From the outside, it looked like the threat was contained, but investigators were not convinced. They reviewed surveillance footage from months earlier. They tracked inmate movements. They listened to recorded phone calls. Slowly, a pattern formed. Ahmed had been careful. He never spoke openly around cameras. He chose listeners who seemed lost or angry. He avoided those who might report him. That level of control worried experts even more. One agent later said the most dangerous part was not what Ahmed wrote, but how patient he was. Meanwhile, intelligence analysts compared the prison manuals to materials found in other terrorism cases. The similarities were clear. The same emotional language, the same promise of purpose, the same idea that violence could be justified. This confirmed what officials feared. Prison propaganda worked because it felt personal. Outside the prison, the case remained mostly unknown to the public. There was no press conference, no dramatic announcement. Authorities wanted to prevent copycats and avoid spreading the very message they were trying to stop. But behind closed doors, concern grew. If one inmate could do this with paper and memory alone, how many others were trying the same thing across the country? Then came the discovery that changed everything. During a routine review, analysts found references in Ahmed's notes to conversations that could not have happened inside that prison. Names appeared that were not on the inmate list, locations that were unfamiliar. It suggested contact with extremists elsewhere, possibly before his arrest, possibly after. That meant this was bigger than one prison. Agents rushed to verify the information. If true, it meant Ahmed was part of a wider network that used prisons as silent recruiting grounds, a place hidden from public view where time moved slowly and ideas could grow. As night fell, officials prepared emergency reports. Security levels were raised. Other facilities were quietly warned. Because if Ahmed's influence extended beyond those walls, then the system had a much larger problem on its hands. And the next step would reveal whether this was an isolated case or the beginning of something far more dangerous. The truth was about to surface, and it would not stay hidden much longer. The transfer happened before sunrise. Ahmed was moved quietly, surrounded by armed guards, his hands bound, his face calm. No announcements were made. Most inmates never knew he was gone. Officials believed removing him would stop the spread. They were wrong.
Within days, investigators confirmed what they had feared. Ahmed had already done enough damage. Interviews revealed that several inmates continued repeating his words, even after his removal. The ideas lived on, passed through memory, not paper. That was the true danger. The Department of Justice now treated the case as a warning sign. Analysts concluded that extremist recruitment inside prisons did not need phones, internet, or weapons. All it needed was time, trust, and vulnerable people. One inmate admitted he still believed the message. He said Ahmed made him feel seen, important, strong. For someone locked in a cage, those words mattered more than freedom. Officials realized something painful. Prison isolation sometimes made radical ideas stronger, not weaker. Across the country, quiet reviews began. Other prisons were asked to check for similar signs. Guards were retrained to look for language, not just objects. Chaplains were advised to report unusual behavior. Intelligence teams worked behind the scenes. But this was not a problem that could be solved quickly. Experts explained that prison propaganda worked because it mixed truth with lies, real pain, real injustice, then false solutions. Once that seed was planted, removing the source did not remove the belief. Ahmed knew this. Before his transfer, he told a guard something chilling. He said ideas were stronger than bars, that prisons were only the beginning. The guard later reported feeling shaken by how calm he sounded. That statement stayed in the case file. Months later, Ahmed was sentenced for his crimes. The court recognized his actions as an attempt to support terrorism from inside prison. His punishment was severe, his contact with others permanently limited. On paper, justice was served, but officials knew the story did not end there. The case changed how prisons handled extremism. It showed that radicalization did not always look violent. Sometimes it looked quiet, polite, patient. That made it harder to stop. Families of inmates were never told what nearly happened. The public never saw headlines. That silence was intentional. Authorities believed attention could turn criminals into symbols. Yet behind closed doors, one question never went away. How many cases were never discovered? Years later, intelligence reports confirmed similar attempts in other facilities. Different names, same methods, same goal. Use prison as a school, use pain as a tool, use belief as a weapon. Ahmed became a reference point, a case study, a reminder. The system had stopped one man, but the idea he carried had already traveled. As one investigator quietly said, prisons were built to lock people away, not to protect minds. And until that changed, the threat would remain. Because somewhere in another cell, another inmate might already be talking, listening, teaching, and no one would know until it was almost too late. That realization left officials with a truth more disturbing than the manuals themselves. The battle against extremism was not happening on distant battlefields. It was happening behind locked doors, in silence, waiting. The warning came too late for some. Months after Ahmed's case was closed, a prison intelligence officer noticed something familiar in a different facility. An inmate was gathering small groups. He spoke calmly. He used simple words. He talked about loyalty, purpose, and sacrifice. There were no papers this time, no manuals, just memory. The pattern was the same. That was when officials finally accepted the truth. What happened with Ahmed was not an exception. It was a blueprint. The Department of Justice quietly expanded its review. More prisons were included. More staff were trained. Officers were told to listen closely to how inmates spoke, not just what they carried. The focus shifted from objects to influence. But even with new rules, stopping ideas was difficult. Former inmates later explained why it worked. Prison stripped people of identity.
When someone offered meaning, structure, and belonging, it felt powerful. Extremist recruiters understood this better than anyone. They did not shout, they whispered. Experts testified that prison propaganda was effective because it felt personal. It did not feel like orders, it felt like understanding. That made it dangerous. Ahmed never spoke publicly again. He remained locked away, monitored, isolated. His name faded from reports, but his impact stayed alive in training rooms, intelligence briefings, and policy changes. Every time a guard stopped a suspicious conversation, his case was remembered. Every time a note was seized, his name came up. The system had learned, but learning came at a cost. Officials admitted something difficult. Prisons were designed to punish crime, not prevent belief. Walls could stop bodies, but not thoughts. And once an idea took root, removing it was nearly impossible. That realization reshaped how authorities viewed extremism. The threat was not always loud, it was often patient, strategic, quiet, and that made it harder to fight.
Today, the case of ISIS recruitment manuals and prison propaganda stands as a warning, not just about terrorism, but about vulnerability, about what happens when anger meets opportunity, when isolation meets persuasion. It showed how easily influence could slip through cracks in the system. And it raised a question that still has no easy answer. How many stories like this never get discovered? Because for every case exposed, there may be others still hidden, still unfolding, still waiting. That is why stories like this matter. Not to spread fear, but to expose truth. Not to glorify violence, but to understand how it grows. If this story opened your eyes, if it made you think, and if you want to hear more real investigations like this, stories that go beyond headlines and reveal what happens in the shadows, then now is the time. Subscribe to the channel, stay with us, because the next story is already happening somewhere, and you won't want to miss it.